Astrology is the myths of the stars and planets, telling the themes and plots of our lives. These stories come to us daily through our satellite, the Moon. She is constantly spinning astro news. Hi, I'm Merrylin LeBlanc with Moonwise. Yesterday at 12:33 p.m. Mountain Time, we had a lunar eclipse. A couple of weeks ago, Martin Goldsmith and I talked about this eclipse in the context of this moon cycle. Today, Daniel Fiverson is joining me to give you another perspective of eclipses, and especially this lunar eclipse. Welcome, Daniel.
Thank you, Merrylin.
Let's start with your view of eclipses. What do you think about them?
Well, in eclipse, what the lowest common denominator is really a full moon or a new moon. What makes it so intense is that, by definition, if it's within approximately 11 degrees of the lunar nodes, it is considered to be an eclipse, and the way that we can view it and what we're visibly seeing in the sky is radically different.
All right. Actually, some people extend that to 18 degrees.
Okay. Well, That's why I say, approximately. It's a moving target. But the point is that the lunation must fall near the axis of the lunar nodes. So why is it that the eclipse has so much more intensity and density than a regular lunation? And the reason is those lunar nodes, because the lunar nodes are the evolutionary axis. They actually hold the karmic imprint from past to future. So when we are on that axis, those karmic intentions and those evolutionary intentions that we hold within us are activated. And when that happens, we feel it in our emotional bodies, first of all. But then we also see it in extrinsic and intrinsic events, events that occur within us and things that are happening in the world around us. And there's a definite intensity to it.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, there is. And I was going to add to that intensity also another factor that you'll find when there are eclipses is that the moon and the sun are at the same declination, which is a word used in astronomy for what we would consider latitude lines or parallel lines going out into space. Mm-hmm. And so there's this combination of proximity to the moon and the sun and the nodes that you mentioned there.
Yeah, I don't do a lot with declinations. It's the parallels and not, but it's
even in astronomy when they talk about eclipses, and you could go to there's a NASA.gov, I believe, site where a guy by the first name of Fred and his last name begins with ES, who's done this elaborate website over the years on eclipses. Mm-hmm. It's actually quite amazing and talking about all these different things that bring about eclipses, as well as talking about the Saros series of eclipses, and giving you graphics and animated graphics too of eclipses. So it's kind of an amazing phenomenon. Mm-hmm. But to get into the interpretation, I mean, to have the sun and the moon at a new moon, they're at either the mouth, the north node, or at the tail, the south node of the nodes. But at a full moon, one is at the north and one is at the south. Right. And in this particular eclipse that we had yesterday, the full moon was at the north node and the sun was at the south node, where they both were 2 weeks ago at the solar eclipse. So how do you look at how do you there are people that really focus on the lunar eclipses more so than the solar eclipses. I want to hear your take on those two.
Yeah, I don't know that we can. I don't know that one is more important than the other. I think that's maybe trying to cut it too close. To some degree, I think it depends on what else is going on in the chart. And one of the biggest factors that I've always heard, and I think it's true to a great degree, is that how much that eclipse is going to affect us depends on how visible it is where we stand on the planet. So there's part of that as well. But a new moon, solar eclipse is a beginning. It's the beginning of the cycle. It's the seed point. The energies are intense because there's this blending of the energies that have come together. They're two perhaps dissimilar signs or elements or energies that need to learn how to work together. When we get to the full moon, we get to the lunar eclipse. This is the point of illumination. It's the point of manifestation, if you would. It's where whatever was planted at the new moon shows up. So it can actually have a more intense visibility, or we may be more aware of it perhaps, because the new moons and solar eclipses, we don't quite know how they're going to blend. It's too new. It's like a baby being born. We can look at the baby's chart, but we don't know what the choices that baby's going to make as it grows and how that chart's going to unfold. We don't know what the parents are going to teach it. We don't know what the parents influence. There's all kinds of other factors. It's raw data, if you would. It's a birth point. The full moon is an actuality. It's right there. You can't. It's unmistakable, and it's had half of the cycle to unfold and to reveal itself. And the evidences are quite apparent.
Mm-hmm. Well, in the lunar eclipse too, though, the Earth gets involved. Right. Because full moons generally are on the opposite side of the Earth from where the sun is. So the Earth is kind of in the middle of the two, and we kind of feel we do feel the energies of the sun and the moon opposing each other more strongly because the Earth is there. But because of the alignment that we talked about at the beginning of the sun and the moon and the Earth and the nodes, etc., that alignment is so important to have the eclipsing of the Earth in the middle. It's the Earth darkening the moon.
Yeah, no, it's interesting to say that because that's the Earth's shadow on the moon, where the solar eclipse is just the moon blocking the sun.
Yeah, it's the moon shadow.
Right. Well, it's not the shadow; it's the moon itself, in essence.
Well, yes, that's right.
And I have to, just interject that, it's one of the things I wonder about. There's two things in astrology that always kind of blow my mind that I wonder about, and I don't have any answers. One is the synchronicity between all the Greco-Roman names and the planetary energies themselves. Someday somebody's going to explain why Mars has Mars energy in it. I mean, I accept it, I believe it, I work with it. But how did the planets come to have those assignments of their names? We'll come back to that maybe in another show. The other, and which to me is even more mystical, if you would, is how at the solar eclipse the moon is exactly the same size as the sun, and how at the lunar eclipse the Earth's shadow is exactly the same size as the moon. It's an unfathomable. There's some divinity. There's something so much greater than ourselves at play here that's unexplainable.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you about. Let's get into the metaphysics of it, because there are metaphysical interpretations of this whole thing. I mean, what does the sun represent to you? What does the Earth represent to you? What does the moon represent to you? You can start with any of those questions, Daniel.
Well. The sun is the source of life. As we know it. It's where it all comes from. It's our life force. It's the warmth, the heat. It's what makes everything grow. It's what keeps us from freezing to death. It's about our survival. It's the total source and fuel for all of the self-actualization that happens not just on our planet but throughout the solar system. And it is the connection, if you would, to the rest of the universe, because our sun is part of a constellation. It's part of the galaxy. The sun has its own family, if you would, its own community that really is all fed to us. It's all filtered down to us through that single celestial body that's close to us. The Earth is our home. The Earth is what we stand on. It's our perspective. It really is us. We are not that we're separate from the sun, though we can't go live on the sun, but we can't separate ourselves from the Earth. It is as much us as we are it. And it just represents this unity, a total singularity. It's a complete system, it's a complete universe, if you would, a complete ecosystem, a complete system within itself. It has all these other things which are fed into it, but it is a singularity. It is a whole. It's a holistic whole, just like the solar system is, just like our bodies are. And the moon, I think for me, the principle of the moon kind of represents our how far we have evolved and how far we have not evolved to some degree. It's the moon that modulates the diurnal motion of the Earth's orbit and the diurnal motion of the moon. It's the moon's orbit around the Earth and the Earth's orbit around the sun. All of that motion itself is really what modulates all these energies that we're receiving. If it's very possible that if we did not have a moon, there would not be life on Earth, that somehow it assists the distribution and dissemination and usage and functionality of the energy that we receive through the sun and that comes to us from all the planets as well.
Well, that's interesting what you say about the moon, because some metaphysicians have looked at the moon as representative of the soul. And what's your take on the soul from a metaphysical perspective?
Well, for me, the soul is Pluto, if you would. Correlates to Pluto from an evolutionary astrology perspective. The moon's our emotional body. And
how is that different from the soul?
Because our emotional body is part of our soul. It's part of the human expression of the soul. I don't know that the soul actually has emotions. I think the soul comes down into the earth, into our bodies, in order to have these emotions, to have these emotional experiences.
So when somebody says, my soul is telling me this, what do they mean?
It means that they're
what's speaking to them.
It means their emotions. That through their, because Pluto is our emotions as well. Pluto is all our direct emotional experiences. So what they're saying is that their gut reaction or their emotional reaction is something is sending on their body. It's a somatic. It's more somatic than it is spiritual, if you would. I think a soul intention. Soul intentions are when we encounter, maybe we encounter a teacher, or we encounter some paradigm or a teaching, or we even go to a place, and there's something energetically in that event that speaks to us. To me, that's the soul, because the soul holds the library of our spiritual intentions, our evolutionary intentions. So whatever we play one of those keys on that keyboard. We get one of the notes.
Okay, but when you say energetic, in some people's minds, energetic, you think about the body moving. But in other situations, you think about something is moving within the body.
Right.
Give me your take on this word that we often use about energetic.
Energy.
There's energetic medicine even.
I believe that we are energy, Merrylin. We're not our bodies. We're not our emotions. We're not our thoughts. We have thoughts. We have chemicals that course through our bloodstream that peak, that tell us about our emotions. But we're not any of those things. We are the energetic frequency, the cosmic note, if you would, that is best represented by our natal chart at the moment of our birth. That chord, that celestial chord that we play is our energetic frequency, and we all have it. And the planets have it. The planets don't have. Rays, and they're like chakras. Just like we have a solar plexus, we have a sun. We have. There's an energetic correlation, as above, so below, on different levels of how these energies interplay.
I'm talking with Daniel Fiverson here today on Moonwise, talking about eclipses and metaphysical concepts that get wrapped up in them, actually. It's time for the Moon Minute. Stay with Daniel Fiverson, and I will be back shortly. Welcome back to Moonwise here on KSFR 101.1 FM or streaming on the web at ksfr.org, where you can always listen to podcasts of Moonwise or other shows that KSFR produces. And we've started this new year out with the metaphorical bang of eclipses. Solar eclipse we had with the winter solstice, and now we're having 2 weeks later a lunar eclipse yesterday. And Daniel Fiverson, my guest today, and I are we've been talking about the metaphysics behind eclipses, and it's quite interesting because let's go back. The sun is like spirit or just energy, period. Right. As you ended at the first half of the show. And our bodies are the physicality, like the earth we live on and whatnot, whereas the moon can be thought of as emotional body or soul. And there's some kind of mysterious connections in terms of soul and emotions and energy. And I don't know if you want to say more about that, Daniel.
Well, I think the bottom line, Merrylin, is we're complicated, okay?
Oh, wow. You're complicating the great mystery of who we are and what we are.
Right. I think that's part of why we're here is to fathom this. But I like where this is going because part of the work that I do is it's certainly a mystical approach. But I think it can be demystified, demystified to the point of not stripping it of its meaning, but demystifying it to the point of actually understanding it so that we can really work with it and bring it down to our level. It's like these outer planets. We still can't digest Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. They have to pass 3 times, 5 times, 7 times, to move their energy down to us. And we still don't get it until Mercury, Venus, or Mars transits it and one of our own personal inner planets and pulls it down into our level. We're still down at a very base level of understanding and awareness in terms of human development. And even though, every day increasingly we are making great scientific discoveries, we're still working with a system that is designed for less conscious awareness, for, less evolved souls. And
I do know what you're talking about. One of the reasons I do the moon cycles, that I've been doing now for many years, is that following them is one of the ways of growing in consciousness about who you are and how you're operating, how you're functioning. Right. And, I've discovered things about myself that I was totally unaware of, unconscious.
The moon's the final arbitrator. Yeah. The moon is final, the one that actually delivers. It's the Amazon package showing up at our door, if you would.
Right. And so, just to come back to the eclipses in the last, 8 minutes that we have here on the air, this particular eclipse happened in the moon in the sign of Cancer, the sun still being in Capricorn. And what has been happening to us as a country, we're a Cancer country. Capricorn has this heavy-duty energy of Pluto and Saturn and Jupiter and soon Mars next month. Mars will be moving in their series. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Sort of, the reflection. The moon is like a mirror. It's mirroring the light. It's not mirroring the light. The Earth is not letting the moon's light come through. And I've always looked at that as an opportunity for us to see the darkness that exists within us on the earth, in our bodies, as tangible beings here.
To see our own shadow.
And it's been a really hellish week.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. But, here's my take is, what we've been seeing and what we're going to continue to see all year, because these great conjunctions, Saturn, Jupiter, Saturn, Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn, Jupiter, if I have them all in the right order, they're not in the right order. But the point, these three great conjunctions are all occurring on the South Node. The South Node is the past. It is sucking out all of this detritus, how do you say that word? All the garbage that's from the past is all coming out, 6,000 years of it in some cases. The moon on the North Node is our emotions are at a place where we really want to proactively move forward, where we're looking for that hope, for that to rekindle that dream, to find that meaning that we can to hook ourselves to a star, if you would. Cancer and Capricorn are about safety and security. Cancer especially is all about sanctuary and feeling safe, and it's polarity. Capricorn it gets depressed when it doesn't feel safe. That's what happens. So we're seeing, all of a sudden there's the threat of war, and with this eclipse, and our world seems even more unstable than ever before. Our country seems more unstable than ever before. As we move through Capricorn and we head towards Aquarius, my concern is that the polarities and the instability is only going to increase. We're individualizing, and this is a really good thing. But we're all individualizing to the point of separateness. And, there's only one of us here on the planet. And this is the realization we need to come to.
Well, the hope is, and that's an Aquarius word, is that Aquarius, even though that energy really focuses on individual development, it also constantly reminds us that we do not do this alone, and that the group, the matrix, the context of which we are in is so important and also needs to be supported and allowed to grow at the same time. This eclipse is part of a series, the Sorrows series, that last occurred in December of 2001 after 9/11.
Right.
And that particular one was in the last decan, the last 10 degrees of Sagittarius. So it was into the first house of the United States chart, where Sagittarius rising, and we had for the first time in our history a threat from immediately on our soil. A threat from outside, and now this one, where we threaten another country and what some of us have called an act of war. Right. And now, what's going to happen in return is the biggest question. Now, you and I are recording this before Saturday, so if anybody wonders because anything can happen any day, any time. I'm not trying to scare people. I'm just saying that there's a repetitiveness when the conflicts that show up during an eclipse are not dealt with. The next series that happens in 18 years is going to even exacerbate that energy.
Let me throw a couple of pieces of bread on the water.
Okay.
Okay. First one is that, get metaphysical here. I truly believe, Merrylin, that everything unfolds exactly as it should.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. The second is a line from the Exotic Marigold Hotel movie, Dev Patel. And I've held on to this for a number of years now, and it's one of my mantras. He said, "It's going to be okay in the end. If it's not okay, it's because it's not the end."
Oh, yeah. I mean, that sort of fits with the whole story of karma and what,
Right.
You keep coming back until you got it right.
We have to work with this, and each one of us has to work with our own lives, our own shadow, because that's what it takes. We can't fix anybody else, so we can't fix the world. We can only heal ourselves.
Yeah, so Daniel, Anything else you want to say about this eclipse in the last couple of minutes?
Well, I would say to just, whatever comes up, just work with it, sit with it, meditate on it if you can, accept it, surrender to it. This is going to be that kind of a year. It's we're only 2 days before the Saturn-Pluto conjunction. We've got the Saturn and Pluto squares to Eris coming up in a couple of weeks. The next, this month. This whole year is just tremendous. It's just power,
especially the beginning that we're in right now.
Right, but the beginning doesn't end. The beginning is the beginning. So. Blessings and peace and surrender and acceptance.
All right. Well, Daniel Fiverson, if you are an astrologer here in Santa Fe, and I know we talked about this the last time you were on the air, you've put out a book regarding the events of this year. If people want to know more about these major events of this year of so many important events for the United States, too.
I just read 118 pages, comprehensive review of everything that's happening this year, all of the major transits, all of the retrogrades, all the great conjunctions. It's all there on Amazon, 2020 Vision, in Evolution and Evolutionary Astrology Forecast. And
you can be reached at?
For evolutionaryastrology.com. You can call me 505-930-2748.
Thanks for being my guest once again here on Moonwise. Coming up next is A Climate One. This is KSFR, White Rock, Santa Fe Public Radio.